Hello there, and welcome to the Earth. Tonight, we're going to step far back in time into a world both familiar and utterly alien. Imagine a planet wrapped in cold, where vast sheets of ice stretched across continents, where towering animals wandered through frozen grasslands, and where our own ancestors huddled close to fires, carving tools and stories into bone and stone. This is the Ice Age, not a single moment, but an era lasting for millions of years, shaping the Earth we know today in ways we're still uncovering. Before we begin, take a moment to settle in. Maybe you're listening late at night with the quiet hum of the world around you. Maybe you're just curious, searching for a calm place to drift while you learn. Either way, let's make this a slow journey, one where you don't need to rush or keep track of the clock. Because while the Ice Age was cold, it moved at a pace so gradual that entire lifetimes passed without anyone noticing the world was changing. And this is the strange thing about the deep past. It wasn't a frozen wasteland from pole to pole. While the northern continents were locked under ice, the equator was still warm enough for jungles and deserts to exist. Life adapted. It moved. It endured. The Earth during the Ice Age was not just colder, it was wilder, sharper, full of contrasts. Here's what's remarkable, and this is something that surprised even the scientists who first pieced it together. The frozen world of the Ice Age was actually more productive than many landscapes today. The vast grasslands, what scientists call the mammoth steppe, stretched from Western Europe all the way across Siberia and into North America. And they were teeming with life. Herds of mammoths, bison, wild horses, and woolly rhinoceroses grazed in numbers that would dwarf the great migrations of Africa today. How was this possible? How could a frozen world support more life than a green one? The answer lies in something unexpected, something hidden beneath the snow. But before we get there, we need to understand how the Ice Age even began. Remember that question about survival? About how humans outlasted the giants? We're getting closer to the answer. But first, let's watch the cold arrive. Picture this. You're standing on what will one day be Northern Europe, or North America, or Siberia. The horizon is not filled with cities or forests. Instead, there's a wall of ice, hundreds of meters high, stretching farther than the eye can see. The air is sharp, dry, and heavy with the scent of snow. And yet, despite the cold, the landscape isn't lifeless. Out on the frozen plains roam herds of woolly mammoths, their curved tusks glinting faintly in the pale light. Some stand 13 feet tall at the shoulder, their shaggy coats swaying like curtains of coarse hair as they move. These aren't rare, solitary beasts. They gather in groups by the dozens, sometimes hundreds, moving across the steppe in search of food. Giant ground sloths lumber across the land in the Americas, while saber-toothed cats crouch low in the grass, their muscles coiled, their long teeth catching the light like polished ivory. Farther south, where the ice never reached, there are still forests and rivers. And in those warmer pockets, humans are finding ways to survive. They follow the herds, hunt with spears tipped in stone, and gather around fires to share the little warmth the world allows. They don't know they live in what we now call the Ice Age. For them, it's just life. The cold did not come suddenly. It crept across the earth in slow, quiet waves, so gradual that no single lifetime could have felt the change. But over thousands of years, the transformation was unstoppable. It began with small shifts in the planet's orbit, tilts and wobbles so slight they would seem meaningless to anyone standing on the ground. Yet these subtle motions changed how much sunlight reached the northern parts of the world. And little by little, summers became cooler. Snow that once melted each year began to linger. And over time, that lingering snow hardened into ice. From those beginnings, the first glaciers grew. And once they started to move, nothing could stop them. The great ice sheets advanced like armies, inch by inch. At their peak, these glaciers were so massive, they buried entire landscapes, swallowing mountains and valleys alike. The Laurentide ice sheet stretched across much of North America, blanketing Canada and reaching deep into what is now the United States. In Europe, the Fennoscandian ice sheet covered Scandinavia and pushed southward, reshaping the land with its crushing weight. As the ice grew, sea levels dropped by more than 100 meters. Entire continents grew larger. Asia and North America were joined by a land bridge we now call Berinia, a frozen highway across what is now the Bering Strait. This bridge didn't just shape geography, it shaped history. It allowed humans and animals to migrate between continents, spreading life across the globe in ways that would echo for thousands of years. And here's what's remarkable about this frozen world. It wasn't a barren wasteland. The vast grasslands, what scientists call the mammoth steppe, stretched from Western Europe across Siberia and into North America. And they were teeming with life. These grasslands were harsh, but they were rich. Cold, dry conditions produced thick mats of tough grasses and herbs, perfectly suited for grazing herds. Woolly mammoths and mastodons, steppe bison and musk oxen, wild horses and woolly rhinoceroses. All of them roamed in enormous numbers, creating one of the most productive ecosystems the planet has ever seen. Predators thrived as well. Dire wolves, larger and stronger than modern wolves, tracked the herds in packs. Saber-toothed cats lurked in the shadows, and cave lions, nearly twice the weight of today's lions, hunted in coordinated groups. This was a world of scale, of giants, of survival measured not in days, but in generations. And then there were the humans. They arrived much later than the other inhabitants of the Ice Age. Small bands of hunters, wrapped in furs, their breath curling in the cold air. They should not have survived. They had no thick coat of fur, no massive size to fight off predators, no tusks or claws or teeth designed for killing. But they had something the giants didn't. They had fire. Fire was more than a tool. It was a boundary between survival and death. Around its light, families gathered close, their furs pulled tight, their hands outstretched toward the warmth. It cooked their food, hardened their weapons, and gave them protection against the endless dark of Ice Age nights. But fire alone was not enough. Humans learned to shape stone into blades, scrapers, and spear points sharp enough to pierce the hides of mammoths and bison. They fashioned clothing from furs, stitched tightly to trap heat. They built shelters from bone and hide, using mammoth ribs as frames for tents covered in thick layers of animal skin. And they had one more advantage: memory. The ability to pass knowledge from one generation to the next, to learn from mistakes, to adapt faster than evolution itself. Around their fires, they told stories. They shared how to track a mammoth across the snow, how to chip stone into a blade, how to work together to bring down an animal that could feed them for weeks. This is how humans survived, not through strength, but through ingenuity, through cooperation, and through their ability to change not their bodies, but their minds. The mammoth steppe shrank. Forests crept northward, closing in on open land. The grasses disappeared beneath canopies of leaves. Humans were spreading everywhere. With sharpened tools, they could bring down a mammoth. The giants were already struggling with shrinking habitats. When humans arrived, they pushed the balance past its breaking point. The extinction happened in waves. By the time the Ice Age yielded to the present climate, the great herds had thinned to nothing. The planet's orbit shifted. Summers grew warmer. The glaciers melted, revealing ground that hadn't seen sunlight in thousands of years. Life reclaimed it: mosses, grasses, animals, humans. The world began to look like the one we know today. But the Ice Age never truly vanished. Its traces remain. Every valley carved by ice, every stranded boulder, every lake, the Great Lakes, the rolling hills of Europe, all bear the mark of glaciers. Even within us, the echoes remain. The skills forged then, fire, tools, cooperation, became foundations of everything that followed. The Ice Age shaped the Earth, and it shaped us. The Ice Age may be gone, but its story remains, etched into the world and into us. Thank you for walking through this frozen past with me tonight. Rest well.